Chapter 6, The Priest and the Nun. What is up with those white flames? I asked Agatha as we watched them dance in and out of sight. Those are souls. Most likely they were trapped in those demons we heard. She replied, we should prepare for a fight. I fear whatever killed those demons is heading this way. Impson said. Fenrir howled and took off running at full speed in the direction of the souls. I quickly gave chase after him. Agatha and Impson seemed to stay behind at the church. I ran with Fenrir until we reached the edge of our village. As soon as Fenrir tried to leave the border, a chain appeared around his neck and pulled him back into the village. Fenrir, are you okay? I said, while I ran to his side. There was an iron collar around his neck and an iron chain was connected to it. The chain started at the collar and ran all the way back towards the church. What did that witch do now? I asked. I'm going to try to break this chain. Hold on, I said, while I rubbed his fur to comfort him. I wouldn't do that if I were you. This is not my work, Agatha said as she made her way casually over. Impson walked over and grabbed the chain in his small green hands. This is the object that enables the CGC, Impson said. He continued before I could ask what that meant. CGC stands for the Church's Grim Curse. It's by these chains that bind the soul to the land that allows a Grim to remain tethered. If it wasn't for this chain, Fenrir would be like those lost souls just floating aimlessly until they either get devoured, their flame dims, or the trumpets blare. Impson dropped the chain. It rattled as it hit the ground. Puro, is that a wolf? A strange voice called out from down the road. All four of us turned on guard at the man walking towards us. He was a priest. My blood began to boil at the sight of him. Fenrir barked happily as if he knew the man. He looked different than the priests I was used to. He wore the usual priest attire, the black shirt with black pants with a fancy black hat. He had a fancy pair of reading glasses. His skin was very tan. He was not a bulky man, but he was very toned. His white collar was replaced with one made of iron. A black iron chain ran from the collar to an iron coffin he carried on his back. The coffin was as tall as him and it was exquisite. It had a spider web design of bones made from silver around the outside of it. I was so busy sizing the man up that I didn't notice how close he had gotten. Easy, priest, we do not know you. What is your business here? Agatha said. She was casually flipping open her leather-bound book. Whoa, easy, senorita. No need to get so defensive. I am Father Felipe, a so-called church grim. He said, as he slammed his coffin down on the ground with a thud. That is impossible. Church grims cannot leave the lands they are bound to. Impson snapped. He was starting to pulsate oddly, his muscles were flexing, and his tiny tuxedo looked like it would tear. Easy now, green guy, no troubles here, eh? Okay, Felipe said while gently waving his hands. Fenrir's stomach growled and cut the tension. Felipe broke out laughing. You see, friends? I can come and cook you a meal. It will be sublime. The best food you have tasted in your afterlife, eh? That is a grim joke for ya. He laughed and picked up his coffin as he got up. I wasn't sure if I trusted him, but I looked towards Agatha for guidance. She was closing her book and she seemed to have let her guard down. Your accent, where do you come from? She asked him. Or, me more. Can you not tell? I am from Spain. Agatha and Felipe chatted the whole way back to the village. I stayed back with Fenrir. It was odd the way Fenrir seemed to just trust this stranger. Fenrir was always a good judge of character though. I however could not forgive the priests so easily. They killed my uncle, drove my grandfather to drink himself to death, and turned my father into an alcoholic, not to mention the fact they killed my best friend. What is your name then, young man? Father Felipe asked me. It snapped me out of my thoughts of hatred. I instinctively answered politely, Tyrell Larson. It is a pleasure to meet you. I said, I was so mad at myself for being so friendly. That is a nice weapon you have on your back. Before I became a priest, I was a thief. Not just a thief, a brilliant thief. The wealthy feared that I would someday target them and their riches. Father Felipe rambled on for a while about how great of a thief he was before getting to his point. My point is, if I had not sworn an oath, I would steal that scythe from you, he said, before he jumped and threw his coffin at me. I didn't have time to react. Fenrir barked and shoved me out of the way. Fenrir got hit by the coffin and hit the ground with a loud thud. Bastard! I yelled and pulled Behemoth from my back. The blue smoke began to pour out from the handle, and it slithered its way around my right arm. The blue symbol of an ox that had appeared on the back of my right hand began to glow. Behemoth's face appeared in the reflection, and he roared as I lunged at the priest. My hatred had been ignited. I swung. The priest dodged my blade. Felipe pulled his wrist towards him, and I heard chains rattle. His coffin came flying into the back of my head. I crashed face first into the dirt. I quickly got up and braced myself. I was wobbly. That coffin felt like it weighed a ton. The blue smoke faded, and the symbols glow dimmed. Easy now, easy now. I was just evaluating you. I did not mean to hit the wolf, Felipe said. He was moving his hands up and down slowly, trying to calm me down. Agatha and Impson were both in a stance ready to jump in if it looked like we needed help. The warmth of moments ago had vanished and tensions were high again. Why did you attack Tyrell? Impson asked Felipe. Easy now. It is like I said. I wanted to evaluate the boy, he replied. Before anyone else could make a move or even say a word, a woman's voice shrieked and echoed throughout the valley. Father Felipe, the voice screamed. Oh no bueno. Ugh. So, funny story. We should hide. Father Felipe dropped his tough guy demeanor and began to run as fast as he could towards the church in the distance. Dust was kicked up in his wake. Hey, wait. What? Felipe yelled, startled. He was encased in a pink bubble like the one that caught me yesterday. It was Agatha's magic. You better start talking, priest. My patience has worn out. Agatha's words burned like fire. Before Father Felipe could answer, another coffin came rocketing down from the sky and smashed the bubble. The weight and force of the coffin crushed Father Felipe, and I thought for sure he was dead. Again. Father Felipe quickly jumped up and recovered himself. He grabbed the chain to his coffin in both of his hands and began to swing them over his head. The black and silver coffin twirled in the air and whistled. Sister Grace, me Amor, why do you break this poor lover's heart? He called out. I finally saw the tiny woman falling from the clouds. A chill went down my spine. Fenrir began to growl, and his fur was standing up on end. Agatha quickly opened her book and Impson roared loudly. Demons are coming. A lot of them, Impson said. His body began to shake violently. Miss Agatha, permission to transfer some of my energy from the living world? Denied. Impson, hide, Agatha said sternly. As soon as she finished saying those words, Impson vanished from sight. Another loud explosion and multiple roars broke out from all directions. From the coastline, the forest, the valley was swarmed by demons. When did this happen? I asked. It is to be expected. With Father Felipe here, that makes 4 powerful human souls. The nun up there makes 5. Demons crave our souls and power over anything. Welcome to purgatory, Agatha said. She took a stance and put her leather-bound book out in front of her. She chanted words. Fireballs launched from the pages. They soared into the sky and hit the nun. She came tumbling to the ground with a thud. I always told you that you were my angel. When did you learn how to fly? Father Felipe ran over and embraced the nun passionately. Oh, Father Felipe, the nun blushed. She broke free and smashed her coffin down on top of Father Felipe. Why do you have to try to run from me? She picked up and dropped her coffin on top of him again. I took the moment to admire her craziness. She was tan like Felipe. She wore a traditional nun's outfit, however the colors were different than the ones I was used to. Instead of black, the clothes were completely white. She had dark brown hair that fell straight down to the middle of her back. Her eyes were hazel, and they looked insane. Her smile twitched in the corner of her mouth as she continued to beat Father Felipe with her coffin. Her coffin was gorgeous. It looked like Father Felipe's, but the coffin was white and wrapped in black iron chains. Gold bones formed a spider web shape that sealed the prison closed. "She's so strong," I whispered. "We'll be surrounded soon. We should split up and take out as many demons as we can." "Felipe, Grace, can you manage yourselves out there?" Agatha asked. Her hands were glowing, and she was running them down over her body. Glowing runes appeared all over her body and she leapt into the air. She was out of sight in an instant. "Fenrir, let's go, bud. We have to make sure those demons to reach our graves." I whistled and Fenrir chased after me. "Are you okay from that blow earlier? My head still hurts from where it hit me." I spoke. Fenrir barked in response. He was fine. Behemoth's voice called out to me from my back. "You need to stop trying to pull out too much of my power," Behemoth said. I kept running as he explained. "That blue smoke you keep drawing out from me, you aren't nearly ready to handle such a power. If you keep trying to forcefully wield me, you will just hurt us both." He spoke. The three of us entered the graveyard. I could see Fenrir's iron chain buried in the ground underneath the gravestone. A loud roar broke out and a large hand crashed into the courtyard of the church. A giant rose up from the ground. It had the head of a brown bear and its eyes burned like bonfires. It clawed and scraped its way towards our grave. "Myko!" I yelled. Fenrir lunged at the demon. He dug his fangs into its forearm. I ran around the giant and pulled Behemoth from my back. "Stay calm," Behemoth spoke softly. I took a deep breath and spun the blade by the handle like a baton. I jumped as high as I could. I landed on the massive hand of the giant. I lifted Behemoth over my head and thrust it down. Blood drenched me. I held onto the scythe as hard as I could and ran up the demon's arm. I got to the shoulder and jumped again. I spun and dropped my blade down. I severed the joint and its arm fell to the ground with a thud. It wiggled for a moment and then went limp. I heard a loud howl and looked up. Fenrir was falling. He lashed out with his claws. In an instant the demon exploded into dust. A few white souls began to dance. "You're up, Behemoth." I lifted the blade and the ox sucked in the souls. "There's more. Go." Behemoth roared. I saw a slight look of excitement on his face. "Come, boy." I whistled and we ran off into the village to fight off more demons. We ran out of the church into the market. 5 bare-headed demons were looming over us. I gripped Behemoth and jumped onto a nearby roof. I ran as fast as I could. "Myko!" I called out. Fenrir jumped onto a roof opposite the road from me. We ran down the shingles roofs until we came close to the first demon's neck. We leapt and both sliced. Its head flew off in a spray of blood. It exploded into light and Behemoth devoured the souls. We continued on and killed the next 3 with ease. Almost 50 souls were aflame and dancing. Before Behemoth could absorb them, the demon sucked them into his mouth. Its fangs seemed to cut the flames as they were forced through them. "This is not good," Behemoth roared. The demon convulsed and thrashed around. Its fists smashed buildings. I quickly ran and tried to jump to cut it. Before I could get my feet off the ground a heavy weight crashed down on me. It forced me into a hunched stance. It's earned its first wing. "You are not ready for this. Quickly find Agatha," Behemoth shouted. I gathered all of my strength and pushed against the force. I took 1 step. Slowly I pushed and took a second. Then a third. A fourth. I broke out of the gravity from the demon's power. "Fenrir, run, boy," I called out. Fenrir barked and turned around on the roof. He jumped and landed next to me. I jumped onto his back and we took off at full speed. "Quickly, boy. Smell Agatha, find her," I told him. Fenrir lifted his snout gently into the air and sniffed. He got her scent and turned towards her direction. I had one hand holding on to Behemoth and the other on the iron chain around Fenrir's neck. The loud roar of the demon began to distort. It changed from a roar, then a scream, and then a yell. "Is that starting to sound more human to you?" I asked Behemoth. I held the blade up so I could see his reflection. It wavered in the bounce of Fenrir's sprint. "The more wings a demon has, the more human they appear," Behemoth said. He seemed worried. "We're lucky this is only a newly born one wing." I heard Felipe call out. He landed and began to run alongside us. His coffin was on his back. Grace and I once tussled with a well-versed one wing. Felipe was interrupted by Grace as she crashed down and joined our race. We got our ass whooped and ran like scared bitches. She laughed. She swung her coffin around by the chain as she ran. "She's terrifying," I thought. Fenrir leapt over a house and we ended up in a large field. Agatha was completely surrounded by 7 demons. We sat and watched in awe as she pulled out her leather-bound book from underneath her dress and flipped to a random page. She began to levitate and chant. Storm clouds began to form in the sky. The clouds birthed a lightning storm that raged and flashed. The loud cracks of thunder were deafening. Within seconds all 7 demons exploded into 100 souls. They danced for a moment before being violently interrupted. They were thrashed through the air as a cyclone sucked them into the leather-bound book. "Agatha, we have a one-wing incoming," Felipe and Grace called out in unison. Agatha turned towards us. Her left eye was open wide. "Watch out," she yelled as she waved her hands to cast a spell. It was too late. An explosion blast sent us flying towards Agatha. She quickly set out her bubbles to catch us. "It's here," Behemoth growled. An 11-foot brown bear came walking out of the forest on its hind legs. It clapped its paws together. "Well done surviving that blast. I must not be used to this new form." The demon spoke with a surprisingly high-pitched voice. "Puro. He is adorable," Grace shouted. She ran over towards the bear. "Puro, you're adorable, me more." Felipe ran after her. The demon roared and a flaming ball of energy launched out of its snout. Felipe and Grace jumped and threw their coffins in unison at the demon. The bear flexed and a large brown wing unfolded from its back. It punched the coffins with its paw, and they fell to the ground with a loud thud. Agatha quickly threw some fireballs that bounced off of the bear's fur. I called out to Fenrir and we joined in. We all threw everything we had at this demon. To no avail. It just sat there and absorbed each blow like we were children. I tried with all of my might to pierce its hide. I started to lose focus and blue smoke began to pour out of the handle of Behemoth. "Tyrol breath," Behemoth said. His face looked worried in the reflection. The demon leaned its massive head back and roared. Its wing flexed, and a pulsating aura flew out from the bear, the force of which knocked all of us over. "Come Huggin. Become my Gungnir." A loud booming voice echoed throughout the area. I heard a hawk's cry and then there was a brief flash of light. For a moment I saw a large man as he raced past me with a massive golden spear in his hands. He struck the demon and it burst into over 100 souls. "Odin?" I asked, as I looked at the Viking before me.